Okay, we'll call the May 16th, 2022 meeting of Lock Haven City Council. Order, please rise for a vote of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Byerly.
Here.
Councilmember Conklin.
Here.
Councilmember Missouri.
Here.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Here.
Councilmember Brinker.
Here.
Councilmember Morris.
Here.
Mayor Long.
Here. Approval of the minutes of the May 2nd regular meeting.
Second.
A motion floor and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Public comments and requests. 4A, comments from residents and city taxpayers. Time we would like them to speak, Case.
They are on the agenda.
They're on the agenda. We'll wait. You want to wait for your point in the agenda? You want to wait till your time on the agenda, not now?
Well, we can do it now. I mean, whatever you guys.
Why don't we get to this? Why don't we do it on the agenda? We'll
Okay.
follow that. Keystone Central School District Lock Haven University homecoming request.
Keystone Central School District is partnering with LHU to do a homecoming parade. They're requesting our permission for their parade on Thursday, September 29th, from 6 o'clock to 7:30. And they'll coordinate with fire, police, and our chief of police, and me as well, starting at Henderson Street and down Main Street through West Main Street. So,
What's the wish, council?
I move approval. Second.
Motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? Questions, comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Okay. 4C, use of Hannah Park pickleball courts. Is that their comment?
Okay, Ron Haight for you, live at 155 Summers Point Drive, Mineral, Pennsylvania. We'd like to thank the council and the mayor and the officials, Greg Wilson, Tony Stopper, Abby Roberts, and Casey Campbell for working with us the last 8 months. We're just about there. We sent a request to Casey about the hours that we'd like to use the courts. And like I said, they're like 8:30 to noon, Monday through Saturday, and Thursday night, 5:30 to dusk. But I mean, it's really hard to put these in, exact terms because of vacations, work schedules, weather. So it's gonna, people are gonna show up anytime and play, and I'm not gonna have a lot of control over that. So, but I guess we were supposed to request to use the park, to get official yes or no approval. That's my first item.
Okay,
Question.
go ahead, questions?
Ron, is that your club using it from 8:30 to noon every day, or is that
Well,
just when you all want to go play pickleball?
well, we really aren't a club. We're just a bunch of community people who are like pickleball. We haven't really formed a club, but generally there's a group. We send out an email to 60 to 70 people and give them the times we play. And yes, they'll show up at those times. That we have an app on our phone. It's called a Playtimer Scheduler, and they sign in so we can see who's coming, what their ranking is and all that. But it's welcome to anyone that, say we're playing and people out of the community come, we'll welcome them and, get them in the program to play. Yes, we'll be playing probably, I'm sorry, that was Monday, Wednesday, and how did I have that?
You have it from Mondays to Saturdays,
Yeah.
so that's 6 days
Yeah,
and one evening.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of tying the court up unless if you're not a club, but if it's just open to the general public,
Right.
then they deserve a chance to play that too. Look,
Yeah, they can.
sometimes Little League team or teams at Petty Park will schedule on certain days to practice or to play.
Right.
But, and then that's understandable, so, but this is a lot of hours. Go ahead, Paul, you.
Yeah, I'm Paul Ballard, 420 West Walnut Street, Lock Haven, PA. When we were originally asked about times, we were asked to just come up with some times that we thought we were going to plan on playing, but there is no set club where people can't come and play. The playtime scheduler that Ron talked about, there's an app, and if you want to play, you can put a time on there, and then you can say, I'm gonna be there at, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning. And then other people can see, oh, there's a time Hannah's gonna be there at 8:30, somebody's gonna be there. And then once 4 people sign up, it says, you get an email saying it's on, there's gonna be 4 people there. So you know you're not gonna go and end up playing by yourself, or there's not gonna be people there. But the pickleball club, it's not a closed group. Anybody can come and play during those times.
And we're probably gonna be doing some advertising in the newspaper to state that.
I just want to make, and I appreciate what you're doing because look, this is a group that is, like you said, it's not an organized club, but they all get together and play. I just want to make sure if there's somebody on the court playing at 8:15 and somebody shows up at 8:30 and says, hey, we've got a reserve, you've got to leave.
You can't reserve the courts.
Right, that's my understanding.
The playtime scheduler is just a matter of, hey, we're gonna be there at
Okay.
that time. It doesn't.
All
I think what he's saying is if somebody that doesn't have playtime scheduler, like if
Right.
somebody's not got your app and they're just,
Mhm.
3 people or 4 people have come out of town, hey, they've got pickleball courts, we're gonna head up there and play, and you guys get there and there's somebody who didn't sign up.
Yeah.
What happens with that person? You just wait till they're finished? Is that?
Well, we probably include them in the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be, 42 courts.
Okay.
And we-
So you're not asking us to put up a sign that says these courts are reserved?
No,
Okay,
No.
no.
Okay,
And
that's
even the.
sort of what
playtime-
I was getting
I think
to.
that's more what we were.
That's
getting.
how I read it too, and
Yeah.
it says pickleball club,
Yeah.
and that's why I questioned
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I'm all for you playing, and I'm glad you're organized to show up to play.
Councilman Brady?
Are the lines painted yet?
Not yet.
They are not.
Okay,
That's, we're gonna,
That's the next
right.
the next
line
step.
on the
Okay.
agenda.
And then secondly, the nets, they're gonna be removable, right? They don't,
Yes.
they don't stay on the court, correct?
No,
No, the nets will stay on the court during the season.
Will they just be up against the wall or the
No.
fence?
no, these
Are they
are
gonna be like
permanent nets.
permanent nets?
But we'll be taking the nets down whenever
Like a-
we feel
like a
it's
tennis
done
net.
playing,
Okay,
for the winter.
So they'll be up for the season.
They'll be up for the season, yeah. They're not portable, they're permanent.
Other questions? What's the wish, council?
I'll move the request for use of the pickleball course.
and I'll second it.
Motion on the floor and a second. Even Rick was tripping over it. Any further questions or comments?
Well, actually, one thing just occurred to me. Why do we put the curtain down at noon Monday to Saturday? Because, I mean, if Bob's folks from Altoona show up at 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, are we going to tell them they can't play?
No. No, it's still be open to the public no matter what. I mean, it's open as long as the park is open. What the current ordinance is there,
That's
it's
the
dusk or whatever, but I think what they're trying to do is establish that there's gonna be a regular pickleball activity during these times because they're trying to arrange it that way to encourage people to get out. Am I correct in how I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's basically what they're looking to do.
Okay,
Okay?
that's a fair idea.
Any other questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Breaker,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes.
Where do I buy a paddle?
Dick's,
Okay.
we're gonna have plenty of extra paddles for people who've never played. I probably got a dozen myself.
And I'm actually gonna offer to give some instruction to people.
Right.
Oh,
that
good.
are just starting out.
Paul and I are both ambassadors for Clinton County, and Paul's gonna do a lot of the teaching since he came from that field. Of people who do not know how to play. He's already been doing that at the Y, in fact.
That was-
So
You should host a
when I
tournament.
go to item 2.
Sure.
Okay, I placed a magazine on your desk. We would like to, well, first of all, back up. The person we're working for, or working with to seal and paint the courts said we have to wait at least till next spring because he wants the andesite cured. Now, we are going to line it as soon as Buck Shoemaker does the core drilling and puts up the fence and all of our posts. But we would like to seal it next year this time and color code it. And the magazines I passed around kind of gives you ideas what we're talking about. Now, this cost is everything is being paid for by the funds we have raised through our fundraising. So it will be cost to the city. And the painting, the sealing and the color coding, the gentleman I'm working with, M&M Excavating out of Williamsport, they've done tennis courts, pickleball courts, a little bit of everything. He says it should have a lifetime before it needs touched again in 10 years. So I guess that's our number 2 item we'd like to bring before you, see if we can have that.
And the rationale for waiting is because we have to wait until it's so long before it can be done. It doesn't make sense to do it right before winter and then have the paint just kind of sit there over winter and just be warm. So we're thinking that it'd be better to just have a fresh start in the springtime when it's cured and ready to go.
But we will be putting the lines down, so hopefully we're gonna be playing by mid-June, 3rd week of June.
So you're looking for us to, our
Direct-
of doing that?
Director of Public Works and
I
coordinator.
plan on that. I just was asking what their attention is. You're asking for us to do.
Yeah,
Permission
we're
to
asking
move
for
forward.
permission because we were told that we didn't have permission to do that.
We have permission to put lines down, but we didn't have permission to
Resurface.
Seal it.
seal it and paint it,
Yeah.
which really is gonna make a great difference.
Yeah, that's gonna make it a top notch. You know, it's gonna really look good coming in and out of town to visitors and that.
Well, Tony is the man that has to maintain all these things. How do you feel about that?
I mean, if it's sealed, it's sealed, it's for you guys to consider, it's a yes or no. Like I said, once it's on for, a while. I mean, asphalt maintenance is basic.
So it's lines this year and then seal and lines again next year.
Seal and
Just
paint.
lines this year and then seal and
Seal,
color
color.
next year. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, our intent was to create a semi-permanent facility anyway for pickleball, so this makes sense to me. If we really need an approval that get that part done, if indeed they didn't have permission to do that, then I would issue permission to do the painting next year, the lining. Well, the lining you said wasn't permitted, the painting next year. Right.
Second. So motion to allow what's been requested.
Right.
And a second. Any further questions or comments?
Comment. So I just want to, along with everybody, Stephen and Barb and Jeff and Rick already mentioned it, the job that Ron and Paul and their group have done has been tremendous. And they've gone out and really have raised a significant amount of money, and certainly the city, we've contributed a significant amount of money as well, but, so often local organizations come with an idea and then they find out how much it's really gonna cost, and it's a problem. These guys didn't let that stop them. They really went out. They're very passionate about it, and the improvement that they've made just to get it paved and lined and to put a shed up there to store the equipment
it takes a facility that was not used at all and is gonna be used a lot. So that's really kudos to these guys in their group.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have motion for and second. We haven't gone through the vote yet, have we, guys?
Nope.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes,
Mayor, if I could ask a question.
sure.
Casey, I assume we're listing that as an extension like of C1 or C2 because it's not, since it
Right, it's
wasn't on the
not.
agenda.
I
Since
just
it
put
wasn't on the
side.
agenda ahead of time, then, that might create an issue.
Kind of falls under use of the court.
Okay, very good.
Thanks, guys.
Well done. Thank you.
One more item. The last item, with making this investment in the courts, we would like to have it locked from whatever month, the weather permits till, for, say, December 1 to April 30th. Because I go by that court, I live right up there a bunch of times a day, and I see what can happen or will happen. And, the painting alone is gonna cost us $9,000. So I want to protect that investment, so I'm coming to you to ask. Not so much this year, I mean, we are gonna spend probably $1,000 in the lines. But definitely once it's painted, I'd like to really do it this year to protect our investment there.
What are you asking?
To have it locked from like,
Closer
say,
to the
December 1
non-policy.
to
Winter.
April.
Closed
May
up
1.
during the winter months?
Yeah.
Do we do that with the other parks?
And there's plenty of, room. And that little portion is like maybe a tenth or maybe of the whole
There's the-
park, there's plenty of area up there.
The law, so to speak.
Greg, are you trying to address us?
Yes, like the previous item, this was not on the agenda, so it cannot be decided by council. Anything that council decides by law has to be on the agenda. So you can submit what your request is, and then council could consider it at the next meeting. But I would have to research that with the city solicitor, because no park can be given exclusive use to any individual or group. And so locking a particular
They're not
facility.
asking for exclusive use. They're asking for it to be locked to protect an investment in and off season that no one should be using that facility anyway. If it was a tennis court, you can't play tennis in the winter.
You can
no
around
difference.
here. There are plenty of times in the winter that you could go out and play court sports like basketball. But
I can't hear. I'm
but
sorry,
I
you were
think-
saying, Greg?
I think around here, that isn't exactly true. There are times in the winter when people do go out and play basketball and play other court sports. But it's something that we'd have to look into with the solicitor about restricting access to a part or portion of the public park. Because I do understand that they're making an investment for money that they solicited from places like the Community Foundation. But the city did also make a $30,000 investment in the parcel as well, using money that is to the benefit of all city residents. So it is something that I just would like to run past the solicitor.
Your concern is only, is only the locking of it over in the off season is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
I think it would go
Right.
along with, it goes along with the same thing as us closing the parks from dusk to dawn. We don't allow people in the parks, so we would just not allow people in the pickleball court.
But we don't currently take an action to lock those parks.
I think he's also saying it needs to be on the agenda.
Well, I know that, and I kind of knew that about the last thing, but we'll take the last vote as being consensus that we want it on the agenda for the next meeting. So
Absolutely.
it isn't officially approved as far as the painting right now. No, he's right, and Rick kind of alluded to it. Anytime you're gonna take a vote on something like that, it has to be out in front of the public, so the rest of the public knows it's gonna be voted on, so that they could come and give their input if they weren't happy with what you wanted to do, okay? So since we did vote yes on something, that we'll take that as a consensus, Greg, that we can put that on the agenda next time.
Yep, that'll be ratified, so to speak, on the next agenda.
So the next meeting, we can officially approve that.
Right.
Well, do we
Okay.
really have to approve something like that since it's a?
Yes, we do.
It's a thing that is under the control of the city. For every little wee instrumental thing, it doesn't have to come before council.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're wrong.
I think you're wrong. I
Well-
just, some things are so minor that we should delegate that to departments or Parks and Recreation or anybody else, or the workings of the city and the workings of the park. I mean, we don't tell them when to mow grass, we don't tell them.
No, we don't. See,
Fix
but
the
this
fence.
is,
And I
this
think we should just let it up to the.
This is about allowing private investment in a city property, and that's why we would vote on it. And it's not a big deal. We already did informally pass it now.
Yeah.
Is it a big deal to have it on the agenda and do it? It's not that big a deal. So it would be on the agenda for the next one, and you're looking into the locking issue. I'm
Exactly.
not sure why that's an issue, but I guess if our solicitor tells us that it is, we'll need to hear that.
Right.
Oh,
Joe, Greg had said that there are some nice days that people can play tennis in the winter time, which is true. But the nets won't be up during the off season, so they won't be able to play pickleball on those courts, even if it's one nice day that's in there.
Good point.
I would put that statement into your written request as part of support for why they should be locked.
okay. Well, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Sorry for the mix up on the
You got-
order.
Said put it in the report. You guys put it in, we don't do it.
Right.
Do we
Your request to have the painting done should be a separate request for what your previous request was. And in that, he suggested that you put the nets be removed at the end of the season into the report so that it would not be used for pickleball during that time. Or could not be used for pickleball unless somebody brought their own net.
Yeah, I could bring up one of each.
Yeah. You wouldn't have to be here for that, as long as you submit that
Coloring
request.
or the lock, we don't take them.
Right.
No,
We're-
you made it. Thank you for taking the time, and
Yeah,
thank
no
you for your
problem.
investment.
For you guys' time.
Thank you.
Can I get my
Exciting.
magazine?
You can.
Sure.
Very
Does
excited.
anyone else have any other
Well,
questions?
you can get the clip. You
You
can't
have to let us know when the next stuff.
Okay, well, we're gonna ask.
Yeah, you'll have to fill a form out to get those.
They tripled.
Yeah. Especially the-
Casey, is
Thank
that
you.
something that we can put on our website,
Right.
advertising that?
The pickleball court?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the taxes,
we
like,
have
like their
the,
app.
yeah, we could. We have like the amenities listed on our website.
Right.
Yeah, we don't advertise like Keystone and like, little, like, so I have to look and see, like, we don't do that for other groups.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I have to look. but-
That's a good community out there.
Yeah.
I'd rather at that, not as a.
I just want to make sure like we're treating all groups.
I agree.
for the same, so, but I'll see why we can, if other groups don't.
Be a nice thing for the Rangers to do if you have a group that has an interesting thing going on like that. Let us know.
We got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No reason to apologize. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, 4D. June Pride Month installation request.
The Clinton County LGBTQ network is once again requesting to paint the stop bars of Grove and Vesper Streets on either side of Main Street with the pride flag for the month of June. This is temporary paint, and once again, as last year, they will pay for the paint and for the labor for that installation.
Which count?
Move acceptance of the request.
I second.
And a second. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. What is the policy with our council in the city for any other organizations to do anything with it? They could request it, and are we going to say yes to every organization?
If it fits what our,
We have on the approval form, it has the list of the requirements for that, and if they fall under, I mean, I forwarded to you guys. If they're out of the city, then they have to go to the county and show that they've asked them for approval. So there is like, if they're outside of the city, but if they're city residents or a city organization. goes
So
all
anybody
through.
could request anything to paint on our city streets?
Yep.
well, if it fits criteria,
If it
it's
fits the
not just
criteria,
anything,
yeah.
we're not gonna print
They
hate
can make
speech
the request to
or,
you guys.
you know,
And then secondly, the paint lasted longer than a month last year. It was on there about 3 months.
I think they painted it a couple of times.
There was some vandalism right out of the chute.
So
Actually,
I think it washed off after the first week or so. And then it came on, and then it was like, they're all simple. So if we say a month, it should be a month, not 3 months. And I was just curious if we're going to be open to every organization, whether it's pro-life or BLM or any organization that wants to do it.
that's true.
It could be wounded vets.
And if they would like to, they can
Okay.
have that request. I have had groups ask for the form, but then never turn one in, so.
So I was just trying to find out what our policies are about that.
If I could interject, the policy for that is Resolution 2021-23. It's available on the city's website. If you go to search the ordinances, under there, you'll see a tab for resolutions. If you go to that, it's called the Rules for Use Requests by Non-Residents, but it details the rules set by council for what will be considered and how it will be considered by resident businesses and organizations and actual residents themselves, and non-resident businesses, organizations, and people who are residents of other municipalities. But the rules and regulations are available on the city's website for that.
And I do have it in layman's terms on every request form as well, so they can read through those.
Yeah, my comment is similar to Councilman Brinker's. Last year, after we approved this request, and I voted for it, I don't really have any problem with it. 2 area businessmen asked the rationale behind the approval, and they basically said, you know what Jeff said, they were concerned, not with the group and the symbol, but that it could open the door for groups that we would perhaps have a problem with, or that would really reflect badly on the city. And I said, listen, I know we have a process for this. I said, this is really the first type of thing that we had voted on like this. And I was pressed a little bit. They said, well, you know, what happens if a really controversial group, a BLM that has no connection to the city, asks, you guys gonna approve that? And I said, well, we would have to consider the pros and cons and vote on it. They were just concerned in that while they don't think the LGBTQ flag reflects negatively on Lock Haven, that maybe a BLM flag or something else, a QAnon flag, that's extremely controversial, would reflect negatively. And that was they were making a point. And then there's a point. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And I think that maybe it wasn't last, but I bet 2 years ago, we did have a controversial group come forward and get approval, and everything was fine. I mean, people did what they were legally allowed to do and did so within the confines of the rules. And that's, I think, our obligation as leaders of the community. We don't all always agree on every single thing.
But to me, this policy is almost, I'm not looking at the policy, so I don't really know what is all in it. But if we say yes to one, we almost have to say yes to all. Otherwise, we're being intolerant to another.
I think what we're saying is that every group has the right to come forward with a request, and they
Right.
have certain requirements to be permitted to do this sort of thing. If they meet all of the requirements and the group and we vote yes to do it, then we vote yes to do it. I mean, as long as they meet the requirements and meet the standards that we've set forth as a city. I mean, this is part of our destination Lockheed.
I would agree with Councilman Brinker, though. If it says a month, then it should be removed after.
So you think we should pay to have it painted over?
It does say a
Just let
month.
it wear off?
Rick, it
Well,
does- it
yeah,
does
but
say
if
a
people
month.
put billboards up, they don't tear them down at the end of the time period if they don't have another renter for them. So
But this is a special use request.
I just don't think we should paint
For a month.
over it, that's all. I mean, let them wear off. That's just me.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody else comes along in July and says, I want to put, because it's 4th of July month, put red, white, blue up, then let them put red, white, blue up over it. But for us to pay to paint it over seems like wasted man hours to, and it's going to wear off anyway.
Well, I do have a motion before, do I not? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Byerly,
No, only because I would agree with Councilman Brinker that it is likely to exceed a month, and that's what the policy says.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes,
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker,
No.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 4E, use of Hannah Park Pavilion on June 11th.
Cheryl Little is requesting use of Hannah Park Pavilion on June 11th for a family reunion. I will work with the organizers to ensure all guidelines and regulations are followed.
What's the wish of council?
I'll move approval.
second.
Motion, floor, and a second. Any other discussion?
Do we go down and check afterwards that they police the area and cleaned up and
I usually
remove
like,
their garbage or
Yeah.
do we haul the garbage away? Or-
I don't usually do like the next day, but like the following Monday, I'll.
This is probably a one-time shot, you know, if they don't do it, once we rush, unless we should think of somebody taking a deposit, returning that to them. Not these people, but I mean, somebody think of that. And then, because if there's cleanup work to do, we got manpower involved there, if we have to clean it, then. And then give them the money back, so.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes,
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 4F, use of Zendel Park for Sheridan Wedding.
Sasha Sheridan is requesting use of Sindel Park on June 25th for a small wedding ceremony. I will work with them, get them the key and collect deposits. Notify the authority.
So which council?
move the request.
Motion, floor, and second. Any further discussion on the motion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes,
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Do we have any other requests, public comments? You're muted, but I'm going to see.
I had none.
I thought so. Unfinished business 5A, authorization to solicit for bids for the Penvest funded Old Phase 1 construction project.
Now that this project has been permitted by DEP and the funding is in place from Penvest, the next step in the process is to put it out for bid. And so council's being requested by the city engineer to authorize the solicitation of bids for the project.
Which count?
we authorize the bid process.
Second. Motion for a second. Any questions on the bid? Excuse me, on the motion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes,
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 5B, award the bid for the City Hall cleaning services.
One bid was received for the city hall cleaning services. The deal proposer is current contractor, Both Enterprise, and it was in the amount of $2,574, which was last year's contract amount. This contract will run from June through December. This will allow us to start our commodities and services beginning of the year, January 1st. That goes from the sewer plant. We also have that contract services. So it's an easier way to put out products. My recommendation is to approve the Vulture Enterprise for an amount of $2,574 per month from June 1st, 2022 through December 31st.
Do I have a motion? And a second. Any further discussion?
You said, Tony, these are the folks that are doing this now for the same price?
Yeah.
So this is in our budget?
Will we have the ability to extend that same contract
There's always a.
instead of having to rebid it?
There's always a clause in there to extend.
Okay.
And then, like I said, that it just puts us January 1st, so the new contract. starts January 1st.
Any other questions? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 5C, continued discussion on the 2023 water fund budget.
This week, council has been provided a document where I look into a crystal ball and try to figure out what the year 2046 will look like. So this is part of an exercise that's required in order to go for debt service that between myself and the engineer, I provide this to him and he comes up with a certified amount in the end that enables us to borrow the money from Penvest and guarantee user fees against the funding. If you look at the center portion of expenditures, you'll see that the water fund's expenditures, excluding debt service, will grow by a little more than $100,000 per year over the course of the borrowing. That's an increase of about 7% per year, which accounts for not only the increase in labor, but especially benefit costs, which continue to increase, and the increase in costs of goods sold, like treatment at the filtration plant, which is also undergoing repairs, and increases in the cost of materials and supplies for maintenance. Those kinds of increases could be sustained through occasional jumps in user fees and then building up a fund balance to be used to sustain long periods of time without adjusting rates. That was what was accomplished in 21 when the city last increased the water user fees. For the past 11 years, residents and businesses have paid the same rate per gallon for their category, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, et cetera. In the same period of time, other utilities like PP&L have adjusted rates a dozen or more times. In addition to the inflationary increases expected over time from regular operations, the city also has significant projects that have to be addressed and for which funding will be required. The way the city obtains the funding is through borrowing for the lowest interest entity, and that is Penvest. As you know, the city just received and you just authorized bidding for Penvest project, which is the first phase of the old dam. Each fund of the city carries some debt service, and the water fund already has 3 debt services total. The 2007 Penvest loan, which was for grouting at Ole, and that ends in 2038. And you can see that on the middle section there of debt service. The 2021 A note to install new water mains in parts of Castanea, that's on there, and that ends in 2041. And the city also has a 2018 C note that is interim financing that has to be paid off October 1st of this year. As the city takes on debt from Penvest to accomplish the projects, the city's share of the debt service is shown in 2022, 23, and 25 Penvests on your worksheet. Since Penvest funds can only be drawn down as reimbursement for invoices already paid, the city needs some fluidity to pay those bills when they come in the form of interim financing. And there are smaller notes with 5-year terms that you'll see that are like the 2018 C for this year. Those are marked as the interim Ole, interim Wells, and interim Keller. And in order to pay back the principal on those interim financing, the city draws down the money from Penvest and uses that to reimburse that interim financing. Penvest does provide some grant funding, but we aren't in a position to be able to predict what, if any, grant funds will be provided by Penvest. So the budget has been constructed assuming that everything will be a loan. Now, I do not believe everything will be a loan, but I do believe there will be grant funding as part of it, but we don't know that right now. So as you look at the long-term effects of the debt service, as well as the normal increased costs of the service provided, the city will begin to see a jump from an estimated 61 thousandths of a penny per gallon to 65 thousandths, hitting a penny per gallon in 2027 and seeing continued increases until it tops out in 2042. So looking at this fund and its budget in a long-term view, not an annual budget view, what becomes difficult to envision is the traditional way of business for the city. If, for example, the city were to raise rates to cover the costs for 5 years from now, which is similar to what was done in 2011, it would increase the average residential bill by $61 per quarter, which is a pretty significant jump. To do this, again, will require a change in the way business is conducted for the fund. And currently, because the city serves customers who are not city residents in both Wayne and Castanea Township, the city must approach the Public Utility Commission to propose a rate change. This costs money and it takes time. So you can understand that traditionally the city hasn't been interested in regularly spending a couple $100,000 on accounting, engineering, and legal fees on a regular basis to adjust rates. However, the alternative, which I'm asking council to consider, would be to adopt a form of governance over the water fund similar to that adopted by our neighbors with the Suburban Water Authority. That is the creation of a joint municipal authority where all customers are represented in the decision-making process, which would both adopt the budget and set the user fees each year, which could be adjusted incrementally over time instead of making one large jump. Currently, the city has the Lock Haven City Authority, which is only representative of city residents and whose members are only appointed by city council. The city leases the operation of the system from the city authority, but it doesn't make that process any more inclusive, and thus the need to ask PUC for permission to change rates continues. I am proposing that council consider engaging with Castanea and Wayne Township to see their willingness to enter into a joint municipal authority to govern the water fund. The current city authority would be terminated in favor of the joint municipal authority, which would take over the ownership of the land, easements, agreements, consider and adopt the annual budget, and set the user fees. This would be engaged by the authority, the city, would be engaged by the authority to operate the system as it does now. And we would need to make sure that the agreement for operation includes that while the city is still paying debt service for the benefit of the water fund, the city would still be the operator. Importantly, the other municipalities don't just represent customers, but a lot of the assets of the water operations are also in their municipalities. Keller Dam and Reservoir and Zindel Park, as well as the new water wells, will all be in Wayne Township. And in Castanea, the city has the old reservoir and also 2 water storage tanks and home property. The communities themselves, as well as their customers, have a vested interest in what happens with those assets in their own municipalities, which is beneficial. After discussion with the city solicitor about the process, I'm proposing that council consider engaging with Castanea and Wayne Township to see their willingness to enter into a joint municipal authority. If agreeable to council, I could contact both Wayne and Castanea supervisors to set up a meeting between members of council and them, and direct the city authority to draw up some draft organizational jumping off point documents for discussion. I do want to kind of reaffirm to council that taking an affirmative vote this evening does not mean that you are definitely entering into a joint municipal authority or that it's a sure thing, because in the end, partnering municipalities must all agree. And so it will take some time and discussion to get everybody on the same page, if it were even to be possible. But when looking at the next 25 years of operation, it is, in my opinion, an equitable way to govern the water fund for the current and future customers. And that's why I come to council and I'm asking you to consider the creation of a joint municipal authority and include our partnering municipalities that are served by the water system in the decision-making process.
Thoughts from council? Doug?
Greg,
Doug has his hand up first. Go ahead.
I just want to commend Greg and great information. I agree completely, but in the notes, Greg, you mentioned Allison, Cassinia, and Wayne. Are you including all three, or was that, did you not mean to include Allison?
We have 24 customers in Allison. I did ask the city solicitor, but did not receive a definitive response back yet if Allison has to be included. And if they declined, what effect that would have. And so the largest two customers are basically 525, 526, Wayne Township and Castanea. And the city has about 2,000.
Richard?
Thanks.
In order to get a joint authority, would you have to have both of these municipalities sign on?
Well, by definition, you have to have at least one. But it would be best if both did, because the customers being served are in all three municipalities.
And it's not an absolute requirement.
No, you can make a joint municipality with just the two. But I don't believe that would excuse you from PUC.
What would be the incentive of the other municipalities to join?
Voice.
Speak up loud, please.
Greg, what would be the incentive of the other municipalities to join with us?
I think over time, at least since I've been here, they both expressed on not a frequent, but on a general basis, every time I discuss any operations with them, they're always about the city's water system. Castanea, of course, is interested in coordinating improvement projects with their paving. Having a voice on the board helps them cement in that interest. Wayne Township has an interest in, of course, what happens in Zindel Park, but they also have an interest in the location of the water wells and the pipeline that will go from there up to the filtration plant. And so I think both entities over time have always expressed interest in, especially the large amounts of property that the city owns in both their municipalities and the way that's maintained. And this would give them a better voice in that process.
And correct me if I'm wrong, just to go back to the point you just made a few minutes ago very quickly, if we don't get all of the municipalities participating, then we still have to go back to the Public Utility Commission for increases. So that's a problem. The other reason though, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, is that would at least give them a voice on any increases.
Correct.
Their communities.
Correct.
That's the biggest thing in my mind.
It also gives them responsibility.
Yeah, which they don't always want, maybe, but.
Or for other kinds of cooperation.
Any other input? So if I'm understanding you, Greg, you're asking us to vote as to opening the possibility, looking into forming of.
Joint municipal authority, yes.
Yeah. Does anyone care to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion for and a second. Any further comments, questions?
Yeah, just a comment. If I'm not mistaken, a joint authority would be more appealing to grant processes in most cases, correct?
I think anytime that you speak to anyone from DCD especially, the more collaborative you can be as municipalities, the more attractive you are in a granting process. So by that very definition from people, then yes, joint municipal authorities definitely look good. And you can see even from a county perspective, we did ask for money from the county's allocation of ARP Act toward the dam projects. The city did not receive a response to that request, but Suburban did put in requests and did get money.
So I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 5D, continued discussion of the proposals for solar development.
Okay, so last time we met, we created a subcommittee and a subcommittee met and narrowed down to 3 proposers to come visit council. Those proposers are BAI Group, out of State College, Entity, out of State College, and Hampton A&P out of Kennett Square. Our next course of action is to decide how we would like to meet with them, whether it be a public meeting, a regular scheduled council meeting, just meeting with us.
If I could interject, I think the question is whether or not council would want to meet with all 3 on the same evening or each developer on a separate evening.
I would think separate, yeah, because I think if they're all here, just from my standpoint, they're all here. We were gonna get this detail because we want to get through the meeting.
After the first one.
Yeah, we're all gonna start going like this, and I think that in order to give I would say, do it a separate meeting. I do think they need to be public. If all 7 members of council are there, we have to do it out.
And then the second question would be, if they're going to be at separate meetings, do you want them during regular meetings that we have, or would you like to call special meetings for those? So added to a regular agenda, let's say 3 different meetings in a row. Would that work best? Or do you want to come up with, 3 days in 1 week where every night you could come for an hour?
I really want to see us get through this, but I'm not certain I want to do
Marathon.
slamming it through. Of course, there's more than just me sitting here. So
I think 3 in a row.
3 in a row at regularly scheduled
That's
council
what I
meetings.
think.
Anyone opposed to that approach? I think you have your answer, Greg. That would be, and Tony, that would be 3 regularly scheduled council meetings.
That's a month and a half.
Tony, can you give us the name of those 3 then?
Yeah, it's BAI.
2 1 week and 1
That's
Well, we could maybe do 2 1 week and 1 the
Do
next.
one at
State
the
College,
or
and then
a special one.
We could do,
Kennett Square.
we could do, I think you just said this, we could do that, or regular meetings and having, but having a special meeting through it, we don't meet every Monday.
Right.
We could
Maybe
just,
add a
that
special
might be.
meeting one.
Yeah.
We're just kind of brainstorming here and thinking maybe we could do 3 Mondays in a row, where we could add another meeting in that we wouldn't normally meet.
Oh.
To be able to get them, instead of it being a month and a half, then it would, be 3 weeks.
All right,
7 o'clock.
let me look at the calendar and I'll propose a couple things to you with
And
Tony.
Special meeting be earlier at 7 PM.
So I think that's what we're looking for, is to do 3 Mondays in a row, so it would mean adding an additional meeting that's not normally scheduled.
Okay,
Tony, you all right with that?
Yeah, what do you guys do?
Well, we still like your input. We may tell you too bad, but
We just have to be cautious of how they, since they're public, so they'll be able to view other proposals.
True. Well,
Sorry for the wrench in
But
there.
could we do it all in one special meeting instead of doing it during the regular council meeting? Perhaps do it at one special meeting and just do that?
Well, it depends really what we think we're gonna be doing. If we really want to drill down into these proposals, that would take a long time. If we just gonna listen to their presentations and form a view that's either positive or negative, then it might be possible to do it on an accelerated basis. But I think there's all the proposals, it seems to me, conceal more than they reveal.
This is basically us interviewing them.
Yeah.
And choosing who we think is the best.
So at the end of that,
There has to be public.
well, it's best displayed, but it doesn't really necessarily have to be. If we're not gonna make the decision, not gonna have a vote, we can't vote, we can't,
Here in presentation.
yeah, we can hear the presentation and ask questions, but we could do it legally. And as long as we are not sitting here exchanging ideas with each other, coming to a
Right.
decision.
Could they give us a presentation and then come in with their final offer after all three are in? Because questions we may have asked will change what their bottom line is.
Right, yeah.
Because they'll have to come in with sealed proposals for bid anyway, right? Or do we get to choose?
We get to see what their bottom line is. Yeah.
Maybe money, they're gonna talk about money.
Well, they better.
I mean, each
So we
one-
keep
each one
shifting
has
on
what
this,
they're
Greg, as
saying.
you can tell.
If
Don't
your,
worry,
if your
John.
presentation
have-
is the last one, you've seen everybody else's financial
We
information.
have to make it Zoom public. Or
It's
just
either public
open
or it's
public
public,
here.
or it's not. I
Well,
mean,
but if it's public here, then the public could come, and then the other offers would be here. And then they wouldn't know what was on the table because they're not here. But if we let it Zoom, then they could go back and watch. But if we don't have Zoom or YouTube, then it's still public, but it takes them out of the equation of watching it.
I don't know that we could do that during our regular meeting then,
Yeah, I don't know.
because our regular meetings are live, so. And to say that we're not gonna do two of them live, I mean, that's kind of a slap to some people, so.
Can we sleep around our people's brackets?
So we still haven't come to a real.
No, I thought we were, and then we've thrown other things in. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're here for, is
Greg's chuckling.
to come to a conclusion on how we should do it.
Well, if you're looking at 3 Mondays in a row, let me look at the calendar and figure some things out, and I'll get back to you.
Presentation.
All right,
I think that's important.
I think so too.
I don't think the other companies should have an opportunity to see the other presentations.
Listen to our.
I mean, if I was
agree with
the third batter, I
I'd
would
be
have,
watching.
I would
I'd
have
be
a great,
watching.
I'd be a happy kid.
yeah, whoever won the first straw, I mean, man, that's like in the Olympics, you get the first go, you know, you're in trouble. So I think we should have it some way that it's a
Or
private,
do it all at once.
or do it all at once.
I know, but that, I
I
mean,
know.
maybe have a special
Well-
meeting and do just that.
Yeah, we could do a special meeting and make sure they're, give them each an hour, and look, you're gonna have a total hour, including answering our
I don't think
questions.
the issue is gonna be giving them an hour. The issue is gonna be giving us an hour.
Well, that's what I said, including the time to
Richard
ask
and
questions.
Steve.
Are we gonna see any of this information ahead of time, or is it all going to be given to us at the presentation? Are we gonna see any of it ahead?
I can give you the proposals now, what they bring, the speaker list shouldn't be, it's gonna be similar to their proposal.
And actually, if we're going to, no matter what, I think that, prior to that, everyone should receive that, because it can help them to come up with questions they may have for them.
Yeah, I can print off copies of each. I have them electronic. I mean, it's.
They can be tough to read if you don't have a big screen.
How's that? Special meeting started at 6 o'clock.
Or 5:30. Bring us in, bring us in.
5:30 is
Be
too
here
hard
at
for me.
5:30.
I'm
Quarter
sorry.
to 6.
And 6, that puts us out at 9.
All right, I have more direction than I did.
Okay,
Why don't you come up with some options?
I will.
Thank you.
okay.
Yes, we're good with options.
Clearly.
Okay, well, I think we're further along than we were before we started that discussion. Maybe a little bit split out, but we'll get it. I will say that from Tony and I sat down, looked through that, and Richard got to look at that. And wasn't even here for that.
I did all the work.
But there's some interesting proposals there, and I think our consensus is that we need to be able to get to work on this, especially with the news of PP&L looking to rate hike here soon. The sooner that we can start gleaning some payback from something like this, the better. So whatever we come up with, we need to start moving forward.
Not to flog this to death, but at the end of the day, we have 3 proposals. At the end of the day, is it to pick one of those? Or is it to engage with each of those 3 separately until we get to their best offer? Or do we pick one and then work with that one to get the best offer? Because when people make these kinds of proposals, they don't necessarily give everything they're willing to give in the initial presentation. And I think there is some room for improvement.
I'm not sure when negotiating, one wants to tell the other side what their intent is on how they're going to negotiate. So I'm not saying any of those options are off the table, but maybe council doesn't have to make a decision on one of those options.
No, I'm not sure that we do, but I think we need to be clear in our own minds what it is we want to get out of this process.
Well, I think what he was trying to point out is that we should keep it in our own minds and not decide as a group right now.
Yeah.
Where everybody can hear it.
I'm not sure I was suggesting we need to do that.
No.
I was suggesting that we be clear in our minds.
Thank you for directing us in that direction.
Thank you for
So I'm always glad to inject character.
Okay,
So glad that's clear.
anything else on that? Tony, do you have anything else?
No, I do.
You'll get everybody copies of from the 3 that we narrowed it down to. Anything else under unfinished business, Greg?
I had none.
New business, 6A, consideration of resolution number 2022-21.
Fortunately, this particular agenda item only has 2 options, yay or nay. So council is being asked to adopt this current week as EMS week. And the theme this year is Rising to the Challenge. 7 Mountains EMS Council, which located within the city limits, Lock Haven EMS is a part of. Obviously, really valued partner in the city when it comes to emergency management, but also during the pandemic, they transported a lot of people from our community and our local hospital to other hospitals for treatment when they had to be hospitalized for COVID-19. And of course, they really were wonderful when your city manager fell off his back porch and taking him to Lock Haven Emergency Room with his cracked open skull. So very appreciative of them. But this is the sample proclamation that was provided for council's consideration.
Nice to see something that after the last few discussions that we should all agree on. Do I have a motion?
I move the proclamation.
I second.
A motion floor and a second. Any further discussion? I'd just like to personally thank the EMS. They do a fantastic job. And there aren't enough people stepping up to do those kinds of jobs these days. So thank you.
Well,
Call for the vote.
More than one of us have good reason to be grateful for their service.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 6B, notification of the first quarter Comcast franchise fee.
This is so that this gets included in the minutes. The quarterly fee from Comcast this year was $27,690.51. That goes into the general fund to be used for everything the general fund pays for: streets, parks, police, fire.
Any other new business?
I had none, Your Honor.
Any FYI or reports from authorities, boards, commissions?
Apparently, there was nothing for your information in this packet. So we didn't have any committee or board reports that were provided. And so that remains on there, but as they come up in the future, they'll definitely be included.
Anyone else have anything to bring before council?
I just have one thing, since we're talking about EMS week, I think that sometimes the public isn't aware. We had a memorial service yesterday for the Mill Hall Fire Department and their team, including their auxiliary. And one of the things we discussed, and I continued that discussion today with some folks, and I think this is hard for people to believe over the years because it's changed so much. But if you're looking for a piece of fire equipment, a piece of apparatus of some kind, you're talking $1 million now. You're talking $1 million minimum laid out, outfitted. Ambulances are $500,000 outfitted. I mean, the cost is just skyrocketing, and most of the companies don't have the manpower to have the kind of events they used to have to raise that. So they rely on contributions from the community. And I think we need to keep that in mind when it comes to the time of year that we give gifts out as individuals, that we remember our fire departments and our EMS departments that are in dire need of that kind of financial support.
Thank you. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
We do.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.